Hey folks, this is Akshay Dhare and I'm recording this on my new Leica Q2. These are my first impressions. Take a look. Alright, so I got the Leica Q2. I'm very excited about it. I'm also shooting this in black and white because I've seen a couple of videos in black and white and they look fabulous. And I'm excited to shoot in black and white. This is not the Leica Q2 monochrome. I did not have the audacity to actually buy a monochrome only camera. Maybe someday. This is just the full color version, the original Leica Q2, and I'm very happy with it. Now I've had the camera only for 3 days. Surprisingly, I had a bad copy sent to me, which I've never heard from anyone before that they got a bad copy of a Leica. But I did manage to do that, and I contacted them next day itself, and they were happy to exchange it, replace it. And so this is my new copy, and this one's working perfectly fine. The first one was working fine as well, but it had some artifacts inside the EVF, and so it would get blurry in certain situations. So anyways, I have a new camera and I've had it for 3 days. I've played with it a little bit in different kinds of lighting conditions, and so these are just really my first impressions. Now let's start with the lens. The lens is a 28mm Sumilux f1.7, and it's a fantastic lens. It provides shallow depth of field even if you're shooting portraits at 28mm, which is great. It provides good separation between the subject and the background. It focuses quite fast, and it has a macro mode as well, which is quite commendable. It's not 1:1 macro. That would be too much to ask from a fixed lens camera system, but the macro mode works perfectly fine. Compositionally, even my S21 Ultra might be able to get a similar composition, but the quality is just, you can't even compare. It's completely off the charts. And so I've had a lot of fun playing around with the macro mode in this camera. When it comes to the sensor, it's a 47 megapixel sensor, and that's more than enough, really. There's an argument that 24 megapixels is actually more than enough, and I agree with that. I've been shooting with the A7 III for the last 3 years, and I'm absolutely happy with 24 megapixels. I don't think I need any more than that. However, the advantage of having a 47 megapixel sensor on this camera is because it's a fixed lens camera. The only lens on it is a 28mm lens. And having those extra megapixels means that you can crop into the image a little bit. And that has some very interesting consequences. The idea is that it has a button at the back where you can choose if you're taking a 28mm picture or a 35mm or a 50mm or a 75mm. And even at 75mm, it retains about 6 to 7 megapixels of data, which is quite a lot if you're just sharing it on the web. Now, of course, these are not actual focal length, so you won't get the same kind of depth of field and the same distortion when you use a crop mode of 75mm, but 28 and 35 are quite close by, and so I find myself using the 35mm frame line quite a bit, and that suddenly makes this much closer to a rangefinder experience, because in a rangefinder you would get frame lines and you'd be able to see outside the frame lines, and so you'd be able to compose keeping into consideration things that are coming in and going out of the frame, and that gives an advantage in terms of how you compose with the right elements within the frame. And when you use the 35mm mode on this camera, you have 35mm frame lines and you have a 28mm EVF, and so you're essentially able to see outside the frames and you're able to compose that way, which is very close to the rangefinder experience, which I really love. The other thing that I really like is the manual focusing ability of this lens. It's a very tactile lens, and it has I think a 90-degree rotation from closest focusing distance to infinity. It might be a little less than 90 actually, but it's not a long focus throw. And so what you can do is you can use the one finger, the tip of your finger, to move the focus tab on it, and that way you can manually focus. You get focus peaking assistance when you're manually focusing, and so that works really well. You can do critical focus quite easily on this camera. And what that actually helps with is muscle memory. So I found that when I was shooting film back in the day in the US, using film rangefinders, I had a Voigtlander Bessa. I still have it actually. So when I shoot with that, I have muscle memory of where my focusing tab should be given where my subject is, how far my subject is. And so I know that if I have to go close, I have to go left. If I have to go far, I have to go right. And with enough usage, you can actually build muscle memory of if something is roughly 4 feet away, where should my focus lever be, focus tab be. And once you develop that kind of muscle memory, it becomes extremely easy to manually focus this camera. And so I'm quite looking forward to that experience again, because it does work best in a lot of situations where the autofocus is not going to work, because this camera only has a contrast detect autofocus, which is not the best autofocus system out there. The Sony A7 III, for example, has phase detection. A lot of other newer cameras have even better phase detection autofocus, and so they're able to focus in a variety of situations that the Leica can't even imagine to focus in. Having said that, over the last 3-4 days, I've never really seen it struggle for focus. In 95% of the situations, it was able to autofocus very, very easily. So I don't think that it's going to be a problem, but there's an added advantage that you can also very quickly manually focus on this camera. So that's great. I think the third most important thing that I was looking for in the camera was battery life, because 5 or 6 years ago I had an X100T from Fuji, which is their fixed lens compact system, and it's even more compact than this one. So actually, from the point of view of a form factor, the Fuji X100 whatever system is really nice. So they had an X100T, they had an X100S before that, I think they had an X100F, and now the latest one is X100V, and these are all great cameras as well. Their main problem is battery life. At least with the old version, it was battery life. I couldn't even last half a day with that battery, and so although I really loved the experience of shooting with that camera, I couldn't use it for very long. The other thing was that I bought that camera in Australia, and when I came back to India, I found out that I wasn't able to get replacement batteries for it, and so I'm stuck with just one battery, which I still have, and it works when it works, but I wouldn't be able to shoot street with that camera for even one full day, even half a day really, and that's a problem. So I was looking for a camera with good battery life, and what Leica has done is they have used the same battery in the Leica Q2 as their SL series, and so that's their professional mirrorless camera series, equivalent of the A7 III and A7S III and A9 kind of cameras. And so it has great battery life, which I've experienced. This video, I'm recording the third take of this video, and that's after 1.5 days of shooting. Not heavy shooting, I didn't go out in the street, but snapshots at home, and regular kind of images that you would take when you're excited about your new camera. So 1.5 days worth of images, I think about 100 images, and then this is the third take of the video. I hope that the camera doesn't give up on me in the middle of this one. But overall, I'm satisfied with the battery life. I think the only gripe that I really have with the camera is not the camera, but the strap. I can't imagine what motivated Leica to send this stiff, crappy strap. Even if this is their cheapest camera, there was no need to stinge on the camera strap. And I've seen this online, like no one likes this strap. I don't know why they keep doing it. But anyways, that's my only gripe with the camera, at least as of now. I've only had it for 3 days. I will shoot a lot more with this, and I'll give you more detailed thoughts on how I feel about the camera. But more so, I think it'll be great to share some of the actual images with you when I go out shooting street or when I shoot just general life. So see you in the next one. Bye.